record. So let's just wait for it to say that it's streaming as ever, still preparing and streaming and blah-de-blah. Oh, it says it's now live. Fantastic stuff. So welcome along to our next book club, because I know a couple of you will be watching this who have been joining us so far on the couple of books we've already done. So we have done, what have we done? My brain's gone dead. Well, last week we did The Compound Effect with Darren Hardy, and the week before that was Limitless with Jim Quick, which was fantastic. And the next book I actually have the author for, but before we, is odd as a guess, I'm so excited, Anne-Lise. But before we do that, I'm just going to pop back a week to The Compound Effect. Now, for those of you that did have a little read or a download of this one, it's really, really good just because it's great to apply in any situation, whether you're wanting to improve your business, whether you're wanting to improve your health and wellness, whatever it is you want to do. Darren kind of has a bit of an answer for you. He's quite a bit of a genius with that kind of stuff, and he's changing sort of one thing at a time, which is what I'm very much into. So he actually, when we did this book on the first book club we did, which was this time last year, we actually had the lovely Darren recorded a very, very quick message for us. So I'm going to play that out to you very quickly before I ask Anne-Lise to jump in and have a chat about her book. So I'm going to attempt to share the screen, which I'm inevitably rubbish at. So 3, 2, 1, let's share that. We'll have a play and I will let you hear what Darren had to say to us.
Be the exception. Hello, Good Vibe Book Club members. Darren Hardy here, author of The Compound Effect. That's right, the book you're supposed to be finishing up today. Hopefully you actually did read the book and you're prepared to have a fruitful discussion with everybody. Vicky there in your book club reached out to my assistant, Kylie, who blackmailed, called in some favors and the rest to get me to prepare this special message for you here. And so that is what I am doing. Surprise. Interesting times that we're in right now, right? I mean, now more than ever, the compound effect is in full effect, if not accelerated. The choices and decisions that you're making right now, even while you're at home in isolation, are directly altering the trajectory of your future. It's kind of like if you're traveling down the highway and you got your hand on the steering wheel and you're going in this direction, just one little nudge on the wheel, just one nudge like this, just one nudge, you know, barely 4 or 5 degrees. And all of a sudden, traveling in that direction, you look up 3 months, 3 years, 10 years from now, and you're hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from where you were traveling. That's the consequential compounded effect the choices and decisions you're making right now can have on your future trajectory. So the positive news is no matter how you have been spending your time as we've been going through these turbulent transitionary times, you can take back responsibility, take back control starting right now, whether that be with your health, your relationships, or even your financial future. It all comes down to those day-to-day, moment-to-moment choices that you're making on the wheel of your life. And now, while you might have been, finished today reading The Compound Effect, I want to know that there's a lot more that I'd like to do to help you as you move forward and apply the philosophies from the book. If you head over to darrenhardy.com/crisis, my A team and I are putting up resources there continually to help you navigate these challenging times. Additionally, if you go over to darrendaily.com, that's darrendaily.com, you can get access to my free daily mentoring that takes place there with 350,000 global high achievers that meet every morning to kickstart their day and pursue better every day. That's the best way to connect with some of the most awesome people anywhere in the world that you will ever get an opportunity to meet. Okay, enjoy your book club conversation today. Make it great, make it thrilling, make it exciting. And that's it for me. Bye-bye for now.
There we go. That was the man himself. I was quite pleased to have got a little snippet, a little soundbite. So anyway, for those of you that did have a little listen to Darren, or have a little listen or a read of Darren's book, love feedback as ever. So pop in a comment what you thought. Maybe there were some takeaways you want to pop in. That would be great. Good feedback for us. And now I have the greatest pleasure to introduce Anne-Lise Jasinski, who it's so weird that I just kind of started following you, and it was like one of those things on Facebook and Instagram, wasn't it? And now I feel like we're best friends and I need to just like fly over when things are normal again. Do you know what I mean?
Wait till it's warm. Yes. Don't do it right now.
It's warm, not now, because it's cold over there too. So
ridiculous.
Anne-Lise has written an amazing book called The Untherapist. And I really felt it was important to, I'm just going to adjust my lighting, feature this on our book club, because I've fairly recently finished it, and I just thought it was superb. So I don't want to sort of go into too much detail, obviously, because we want people to get the book, clearly. But do you want to just give a little bit of a background on how you came about to write it, Anne-Lise? That's probably a good start.
Well, sure. So it's really my story and how I became the Untherapist and why I think that matters, or how it might be helpful to people who are ready to turn their life and the messes in it into some sort of cohesive learning and healing path. And really, about a year ago, I realized, as the shutdowns and the whole pandemic thing were happening, that I was going to have to go online, because everything I'd been doing prior to that with my personal coaching and doing what I call super learning sessions that are, kind of an intensive that you work one-on-one with people, had all been face to face. I was like, I can't do that right now. So I had, all of my ability to do this was cut off. And so I started thinking about ways to go online and kind of transition myself into a more virtual space and coaching. And I did some evergreen courses that I just recorded ahead of time, and I put those out into the world the first few months of 2020, and like crickets, nothing happened. And then I was just trying to trust. As of last year, I really just thought, what's happening in the world right now, and all these shifts into greater awareness that are kind of globally, I think, trying to happen. I was really wanting to be a part of that flow. And so I was trying not to resist or force. And I put all this effort into doing these first few courses, nothing's happening. So I try to just remain open. What's next? What's next? Well, by the end of May, I was doing some changes with my health. I started something called intermittent fasting, and I was listening to a podcast about this. And as a result of listening to this podcast, they had featured somebody on there that helps people write their story, write a book. So I listened to this podcast, and by the end of this 1 hour podcast, I realized, you have those moments where it just sort of drops into your soul, and you're like, I think I'm writing a book next. I think a book is what I'm doing next. Because I had been kind of just like, how do I do this? What do I, and nothing was happening. And I decided to write a book. So that's the end of May. By the end of October, the book is a bestseller on Amazon. So things can happen so quickly. And through the course of writing this book, from June through, I guess, September, is when I wrote the book, and I put my story onto paper. And that transition was something that was so important. I didn't even know. I at the beginning of 2020, writing a book was not on my radar. Putting my story out to the world in a way that other people could consume it and learn from it, not even on my radar. I was just going to go about my business and do my coaching and do my, sessions. And so then all of a sudden it was out there, and people were receiving it. And then I opened the Academy, which is my main way of interacting and bringing people into the concept of Untherapy. And then we just kind of work on that together weekly live. And that was one of the big things, is like, we're transitioning as a global community into more of like face-to-face learning, where we don't just want to consume evergreen content alone, privately, on demand necessarily. We like these live interactions. We like to know we can find somebody to ask a question to, and find out either in real time or in the, somewhat in the moment, knowing there's somebody out there on the other end, giving, receiving, learning together. So that's how I came to put my life on paper and out into the world.
And did you find for you it was something that was therapeutic as well, in that, for using that word, but something that helped you go through a process? Do you know what I mean? Was it something
100%? When I started to write it, I had this idea that I knew what it would sound like, and what it would look like. And I certainly felt that I had processed through the various aspects of my story to a degree that I had no problem thinking about the idea of putting them into words. And as I started down this journey, whoa, some of those chapters, what I thought would be contained in the first part of the first chapter ended up being chapters 3 through 8. So just how we see our lives when we're just going through it versus how it comes out on paper. And I had one friend, I had several people I was running my ideas by in real time as I was writing, but one friend in particular, I would send her a chapter, because the publisher had me submitting a chapter per week. That was the rate we were on, so we could release at the time that we had set. And I would send her a chapter, and she would say, she just sent me back a list of questions. Well, how did this happen? And why did you do this? And I know you from now, but this makes no sense. The now Annalise would have never done what Annalise in this chapter did. So explain how you got from here to here. And that trajectory of how I got from here to here ended up being the bulk of the book.
Oh, yeah.
Because what I came to realize is that's the story we all want to hear. We want to understand how we're not just this static person that's a snapshot on Instagram of how great we're doing today. We are the sum of everything we've experienced and felt and thought and dreamed and hoped and failed. And so seeing that and putting that into words was incredibly therapeutic and eye-opening. And I feel like I got more from this book than anybody.
Yeah, that's it. Because you can almost say, well, even if I wrote it just for me, it still
Just for
helped
me.
me. And this is the thing. I was talking to my coach the other day. I have a business coach, and we were talking about how, like when it's your own life, and I know about your life, so I'm not gonna ruin it. But when it's your own life, that's your normal. That's your process. That's what you're used to. So that is what I'm going to say normal, but that's kind of like you just roll with it. Now, I think some people just kind of like they deal with it and they move on, and they deal with it and they move on, and then others don't. And what my coach was saying was that she's been through her fair share of traumas and problems, but she's never really thought about it. And then sometimes when you go through coaching, when you go through a process like you've been through, where you had to write down on like all these things that happened in your life and then reread them, and it was probably even for you quite like shocking in a way, and like, oh wow, I kind of didn't see it like that at the time. So I mean, I personally think I think we should all write our life story in a way, because I think everything that somebody goes through is gonna help somebody else process something they've been through. And I think your story is just like an absolute perfect snapshot of how that can help people.
Well, thank you. I
Really,
wrote down before. I'm very big on desired end results. I'm very big on, before you undertake a big project that you feel very passionate about,
yeah,
may as well put a little bit of time and effort into what you imagine the end of that will feel like. So I spent a little bit of time, didn't take much because I was already so excited about it, but I just imagined what it would feel like to be a published author, a bestseller, and to have already written my book before I ever started. And I wrote down a few notes. I also wrote the acknowledgements. I wrote, thank you to my publisher for making this first book experience so wonderful. Thank you. I wrote acknowledgements, but I also wrote down a few things about like who I wrote it to. So I wrote basically the dedication and the acknowledgements before I ever wrote the book.
yeah.
And I wrote it for 3 audiences. Number 1, myself.
Yeah.
I wrote this book for me because I thought, in case it bombs, at least I will have learned something.
Exactly. It's a process. Yeah.
It took all the pressure off, because this was just an idea and I had it and I was going for it and the world's going crazy. So, I already just spent all of these months and time and money and energy putting out these courses that bombed. So what do I have to lose trying to write a book? And then I wrote it for my husband because he factors in as a major character in the book. And he's one of those people that proves that you as a single person, as an individual, can change the course of so many people's lives. That, he was that person to me. So I was like, I'm going to write this for him because I guarantee you, he does not know that he is that kind of person. He's just, again, like you said, that's his normal. He doesn't think about the impact that he has had on so many people, way beyond me, but also through me.
Yeah.
And then third, I'm writing this for the people who are where I was when I was in my story that's in the book. My story continues, but I had to end it at some point. And so especially women, but anybody who's in a place where they don't see why life is so hard, or things are so against them, or the world seems to be favoring everyone but them. And I wrote it for them, third of all, just in case those people never found it, or I didn't get the message clear.
At least
but
it's
I do
out
think
there.
that,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. And so I decided ahead of time, this is who I was writing the book for. And I started with me because I knew anything that is worth doing, I have to be doing it for me first. That's why I did those courses at the beginning of the year. I was like, I am going to teach these courses because they're the things I most first wanted to learn. Nobody ever took those courses. A few of my close friends and family members took them and loved them, but like nobody, nobody went out and just changed their lives because of them. So I was like, I'm going to do this for me first and we'll see what happens. And at the very least, I will grow and change. And I think that's what we should always be doing. We should be doing what we're most passionate about. That way, if it fails, it still succeeds. Like
it's still,
you can't lose.
and that's what already from the books that we've been reading on book club, and from the others that I've got yet to come for people, those that you've talked about some of the fundamentals, like one of the things Jim Quick talks about, which is fantastic because you've referenced it, is he's saying like when things feel overwhelming and when and he uses the example of an author. He says, let's say for example you're an author and you're given a time that you have to have something done by, rather than thinking I've got to write this entire book by October, start with the acknowledgement. Start with the first, like literally just a couple of bits and pieces, and then do it bit by bit by bit. Because I bet even for you were at some point you're overwhelmed with how am I going to get what is in here on there at a certain deadline. So that's one thing Jim Quick, the brain man, talks about, and he's incredible. And also it's same with the compound effect. You've got to do these little processes which will then help you sort of move forward as well, and they're going to help other people. And I think that's what you've definitely demonstrated in your book. And what I love about your book as well is at the end of each chapter, your beginning of each chapter, I'm saying the end, your old beliefs and then your new beliefs. I think that's just so brilliant, the way you write, like it's almost like a good and evil. I know it's not really, but it's kind of like a for and against type thing. Yeah, it's really clever. And it's just a really original way of looking at it. Do you know what I mean? So I just want to say to anyone out there who, you don't, I know that Anne-Lise has put on the front here, you've got surviving divorce, remarriage, tornadoes, rip currents and other forces of nature. You might see that and think, well, that's not relevant to me. I've got, this fantastic life and blah, blah, blah. Honestly, read it anyway, because it will give you a perspective of things. And I can guarantee you there is someone out there in your world who is hurting and may want to read something like this. And if you read it, then you can relate and you can perhaps pass that information on, because it is an amazing message. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I mean, what I would say though, Anne-Lise, is there anything that you would like to add to this to sort of to put out to people about your book?
Well, I think because we've kind of made this about the idea of putting something out there and writing a book, I think I would like to play off of what you mentioned, where you said, I feel like everyone should write their story. I do think since I've become a published best-selling author, people kind of sometimes look at me differently, like now I'm somehow more special or more accomplished than other people.
Take it. Say thank you and take it.
I do. I'm like, okay, bring it. Yeah, it's an awesome book and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah.
Also, everyone has a story, and whether you go and make it a thing and publish it or not, writing your story down or even writing your daily thoughts down in some way, shape, or form can be really transformative, because it takes that subconscious sort of gray noise that's always kind of bubbling in the background and it makes it concrete. And then it helps you take those small awareness steps that turn you from sort of floating in the atmosphere into like making some actual concrete conscious observations that, like the compound effect says, take those tiny little 1 degree shifts and turn us to a whole new perspective or possibilities. And so I think I just want to say, let's not make it so overwhelming and hard. Let's not make it like, poop, I just wrote this big book and it's this big deal. Let's make it like, take one step, like spend 5 minutes journaling before you go to bed tonight.
Absolutely.
Or do one new thing, or brush your teeth with the other hand.
Exactly. That's in Jim Quick's book. So good. So true. It's brain training.
Things. And it's funny because when I used to try that here and there with the toothbrushing thing in particular, it would create resistance and I would get angry. Now I do it for fun because it's interesting. And I notice like I reach the teeth differently and I can really get the back of that bottom molar, like because we just develop the habit.
Autopilot.
We just gotta keep ourselves breaking out of that and expanding. And it's so
as humans, that's what we need. We need these new challenges. And I think what's so fantastic about what you've just said about that, and that you didn't know, you've touched on the same thing that we mentioned last week about the toothbrush, is here we have all these successful people. You've got Anne-Lise, she's a writer. You've got Jim Quick, who's like
The brain
teaching
guru,
people how to
yes.
learn, you know, but this thing about brushing your teeth is mentioned in so many other circles. And if all these people are doing it and saying it works, then it means there's something in it. So, you know, don't be like I was a few years ago and be all like, oh, well, you know, not prepared to take anything new on. I think if we're learning, then we're growing, and that is so important. And that's what book club is all about. Is, you know, if you're watching this now and you think that somebody could do with hearing this, reading this book, knowing about something we've spoken about, share this video, share it on Facebook, share it on Instagram, share it on YouTube, because you know, the more we get out there and connect with people, and like you said earlier, Anne-Lise, connecting up right now is so important, because we're not getting that connection in real life that we would normally get. So I think just using forums like this to just connect with new people is just a fantastic thing to do. So I can't thank you enough for coming on. I will be putting in my link on my Facebook business page. I'll put the link to your book where people can get it. I bought mine from Amazon. It was literally within a couple of days I had it on my doorstep. So wherever you are in the world, there's an Amazon. So, you know, like it or not, that's probably the easiest place to go. But you know, you can obviously give Anne-Lise a follow. She's on Instagram, the Untherapist, and she's on Facebook as well. I will put all the links to all of her pages and whatnots in my posts and stuff. So definitely give her a follow. And yeah, if anyone wants to reach out to you, Anne-Lise, how can people get, obviously they can join with your academy as well. So
right. So theuntherapist.com is where you can connect with me the most easily, and that'll get you to all the different places I am.
Perfect. Yep. That's perfect. Well, thank you so much, my darling. Wonderful to chat to you as ever, and I'm sure we'll chat again live. And like I say, as soon as things opening up, I'm coming over, and I want to experience some of the palm tree situation that you've got going behind you.
I know, my virtual background, because it's so cold here, and I'm wearing like sweaters and I had
sweaters with sweaters on and jackets and hats. You're literally running off to a fire now and be like, oh. So thank you, my darling, again. Wonderful to speak to you and speak